Last seen, when the final glimpse becomes a haunting question. There are moments captured in time that become unbearable to contemplate. A security camera recording someone walking into a building, a friend waving goodbye on a crowded street, a father checking on his sleeping child in the middle of the night. These mundane, everyday moments transform into something else entirely when the person in them is never seen again. The last sighting becomes a boundary between the known world and something we cannot comprehend. A threshold where someone steps from existence into absence, leaving behind only questions that grow heavier with each passing year. These are not stories I've invented. They are documented cases of people who were seen, who were there, who were real and solid and alive, until suddenly they weren't. And in that sudden transformation from presence to absence, they left behind something more disturbing than any fiction could create. The knowledge that in our modern world, with all its cameras and witnesses and connectivity, people can still simply vanish. Let me take you to Dublin, Ireland, December 7th, 2000. Trevor Deely, a 22-year-old bank employee from Naas, County Kildare, attends his office Christmas party. He's reliable, punctual, the kind of person who shows up when he says he will. The celebration moves through several venues before ending at Buck Whaley's nightclub on Lower Leeson Street. Nothing about this night suggests anything unusual is about to happen. Around 3:25 in the morning on December 8th, Trevor leaves the nightclub. The weather is brutal. Heavy rain, winds gusting up to 70 miles per hour. A taxi strike means no cabs are available. Trevor walks into that violent storm, heading toward his apartment in Ballsbridge. At 3:35 in the morning, security cameras captured Trevor arriving at his office on Wilton Terrace, the rear entrance to the Bank of Ireland building where he works. He's there to retrieve an umbrella and perhaps organize some things for his shift later that day. The footage shows him clearly, but it also shows something else. A man, dressed entirely in black, standing near the back gate, speaking to Trevor. The conversation appears brief. The man is unidentified. To this day, police have never determined who he was or what was said in those moments. Trevor enters the building, stays briefly, then leaves again at approximately 3:45 in the morning. He's carrying the umbrella now. The man in black is no longer visible in the frame. Trevor turns and begins walking home, heading east toward Haddington Road and his apartment beyond. At 4:14 in the morning, another security camera captures Trevor passing a Bank of Ireland ATM on Haddington Road. He's still walking, still moving through that violent storm, umbrella in hand. But enhanced footage examined years later reveals something chilling. Approximately 30 seconds after Trevor passes the camera, another figure appears in the frame. A man, also in dark clothing, walking in the same direction, following the same path, maintaining the same distance. Police initially believed this might be the same man who spoke to Trevor outside his office. Recent enhanced analysis has determined they are two different people, which raises an even more unsettling question. How many people were watching Trevor Deely that night? After 4:14 in the morning, Trevor Deely was never seen again. When his employer contacted his parents on Monday, they knew immediately something was catastrophically wrong. Trevor was never late, he never disappeared without explanation. The Gardaí launched an extensive investigation. They reviewed every camera, interviewed hundreds of witnesses, searched waterways and derelict buildings. In 2017, acting on information from an informant, police searched a secluded area in Chapelizod. The informant claimed Trevor had been murdered by a criminal gang. They found a gun and drugs, but nothing connected to Trevor. The lead went nowhere. 25 years later, police have investigated nearly 900 leads. The man in black outside Trevor's office remains unidentified. The second man on Haddington Road has been identified and cleared, but that doesn't answer the fundamental question: where is Trevor Deely, and what happened after he walked past that final camera? Now let me take you back further. Manhattan, December 12, 1910. Dorothy Arnold, a 25-year-old socialite and heiress to a perfume fortune, leaves her family's townhouse on East 79th Street. She's dressed impeccably, carrying $30, which is approximately $1,000 in today's currency. She tells her mother she's shopping for a dress for her sister's Marjorie's debutante ball. Dorothy is not a typical society girl. She's a Bryn Mawr graduate who wants to be a writer. She's submitted short stories to McClure's magazine, both rejected. Her family has mocked her aspirations. She's asked to rent an apartment in Greenwich Village to write. Her father refused, telling her, "A good writer can write anywhere." She's also in a secret relationship with George Griscom Jr., an engineer her parents disapprove of. She's pawned jewelry to spend time with him, lying to her family about where she was. They've forbidden the relationship, but she continues corresponding with him in secret. On this December day, Dorothy shops along Fifth Avenue. She stops at Park and Tilford to buy chocolates. She visits Brentano's bookstore on 27th Street and Fifth Avenue, purchasing a book of humorous essays. Outside the bookstore, sometime before 2 in the afternoon, she encounters a friend named Gladys King. They speak briefly. Dorothy mentions that she plans to walk through Central Park before going home. Gladys remembers nothing unusual about the conversation or Dorothy's demeanor. She seemed perfectly normal, content, ordinary. That is the last confirmed sighting of Dorothy Arnold. She told her friend she was walking through Central Park. She never arrived home. That evening, when Dorothy doesn't appear for dinner, her family begins making quiet inquiries. Strangely, when a friend calls asking for Dorothy, her mother says she's in bed with a headache. The family knows she's missing, but they're lying about it. For 6 weeks, they don't report Dorothy's disappearance to police. They hire a private investigator instead. He searches hospitals and morgues, discovers her secret post office box and her relationship with Griscom, but finds no trace of Dorothy herself. On January 25, 1911, 6 weeks after she vanished, her father, Francis Arnold, finally makes her disappearance public. The delay is shocking. Police are furious about the lost time. The answer seems to be reputation. For a family in the social register, scandal was to be avoided at all costs, but the silence accomplished nothing except deepening the mystery. Francis Arnold believes his daughter was murdered and thrown into the Central Park Reservoir. Police point out the reservoir was frozen solid on December 12th. The theory makes no sense, but Francis remains convinced, stating, "I am firmly convinced my daughter has been killed, and I will spend every dollar I have in the world to avenge her death." Years later, a convicted criminal claims he was paid to bury a young woman's body in December 1910, saying it was Dorothy Arnold. Police excavate properties in New Jersey. They find nothing. Francis calls it utter nonsense. Dorothy Arnold's disappearance remains the oldest active missing persons investigation in New York City history. More than a century later, no one knows what happened. Did she commit suicide? Run away to start a new life in an era when changing your name meant changing your identity completely? Was she murdered? Or did something else happen? Something her family covered up? The questions persist because Dorothy Arnold was last seen in broad daylight on a busy Manhattan street. She was well known. She was distinctive. She should not have been able to vanish so completely. Yet she did. And in vanishing, she left behind a mystery that has never been solved, and perhaps never will. These cases, separated by decades and geography, share a common element that makes them particularly haunting. They involve people who were documented, witnessed, seen by others in those final moments. Trevor Deely on security cameras, walking through a storm. Dorothy Arnold speaking to a friend outside a bookstore. They were there. they were real, and then they crossed some invisible threshold and ceased to exist in any way we can verify or understand. The phrase "last seen" carries a weight that's difficult to articulate. It marks the boundary between presence and absence, between the known and the unknowable. After that final sighting, there's only emptiness. No body, no evidence, no resolution, just the footage or the witness statement or the photograph frozen in time showing someone who's about to disappear. For the families left behind, these last sightings become unbearable to contemplate. Trevor Deely's brother Mark can watch his brother on that security camera, walking through the rain, unaware that he has minutes left in the world as we know it. Dorothy Arnold's family could read the account of her conversation with Gladys King, knowing that moments after those ordinary words were exchanged, Dorothy stepped into oblivion. And for the rest of us, these cases serve as reminders that the world is stranger and more uncertain than we want to believe. We like to think that people don't simply vanish. We like to imagine that in our age of surveillance and digital tracking and constant connectivity, everyone can be found. But Trevor Deely and Dorothy Arnold and so many others prove that assumption wrong. People do vanish. They walk past a camera or speak to a friend, and then they're gone, leaving behind nothing but the terrible knowledge that they were there, they were seen, they were last glimpsed in a moment that has become frozen forever as the boundary between presence and absence. If you have any information about Trevor Deely's disappearance in Dublin in December 2000, please contact the Gardaí at Pierce Street Garda Station. His family is still searching. They still need answers. And somewhere, someone knows something that could finally bring resolution to a case that has remained open for a quarter of a century. Thank you for spending this time with these stories. If you found this exploration of last sightings and unsolved disappearances worth your attention, I'd be grateful if you'd take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. There are more mysteries waiting to be examined, more questions that deserve to be asked, and I'll be here to guide you through them with the care and respect they require. Until next time, remember that the people we lose to these mysteries were real. They had families who loved them, futures that were stolen, and final moments that we can see but never understand. They deserve to be remembered, and their stories deserve to be told.